What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. We got a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to talk about a lot of the things that just happened, obviously, and we're going to look ahead to the month of June because there's so many things going on. And to help us, we're going to have Danny West, our football recruiting insider, and Curtis Wilkerson, our hoops insider, join us to talk about things. All that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Before we get started, of course, I want to mention there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. Be sure to follow the page if you haven't done so already. Follow with 85,000 other Razorback fans. Also available on YouTube. Be sure to throw us a like or a thumbs up on both of those platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have that 5-star review. Say something about the show. Let other people know what to expect. We certainly would appreciate that. And also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of. Find a favorite podcast. Hog Sports is just $1 right now for your first month at HawgSports.com. Said this many a time also. Hog Sports come with Paramount Plus for free. It's $100 a year for Paramount Plus. $100 a year for Hog Sports, basically. You get Paramount Plus for free. If you're going to subscribe to Paramount Plus, you might as well subscribe to Hog Sports and get that for free. Basically, either way you look at it, one of them's free. Halo, Yellowstone 1883, the newer Yellowstone that's coming out, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Discovery, all the Paramount movies, tons of great stuff. South Park, I watched the new South Park the other day too. Tons of great stuff on Paramount Plus. All right, time to get into it. Where do we want to start? Arkansas baseball. Obviously, it's been a pretty wild regional with Oklahoma State. Arkansas beating Grand Canyon, beating Oklahoma State, falling to Oklahoma State last night in 10 innings. That was a wild one. They play tonight. We're not going to get too much into it, so this isn't too dated, but they play tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time, and that is on ESPN2. I'm not sure how – the pitching has been wild. This has been a lot of fun to watch. I've been sitting outside on the patio watching all these games. It's been enjoyable. So good luck to the baseball team tonight. We haven't talked about Sam Pitman signing his new contract. That was June 2nd. And, of course, we'd reported, all that stuff back on April 16th is when it originally happened. It's an interesting deal. $5 million over the next 4 years, increases to a fifth year if he wins 7 games in any of those years, which is going to happen. It's going to happen next year. I'll get into a little bit of that too. But it's going to happen next year. They're going to win at least 7 games because it also includes a Power 5 opponent in a bowl game. You can include that into this. I think this contract has a lot of the things that Pitman wants in it in terms of, obviously increasing his salary, keeping here. Also took care of all their assistant coaches, a bunch of them right before the season started. But it takes care of a lot of that stuff for Pitman. You can read the full 21-page document at HawgSports.com if you want to. But also a lot of the Yurachek flavor. You remember when the Yurachek first got here, he said, I believe losing is a fireable offense. Now, there are certain things that you cannot do. You can't be the only athletic director to structure contract a certain way to where it's all incentive-based. But this has a lot of things in it, particularly the 75% and 50% compensation if he's fired for convenience. So Sam Pitman starts swirling the drain, which I don't think is happening, and things aren't looking good, and he's going to get fired. Then if he's over 75%, if he's over 50% winning percentage, then he gets 75% of the remainder of his contract. If he's below 50%, then he only gets 50% of the remainder of the contract. That's a very Hunter Yurachek type of thing there. Right now, Pitman is 12-11 at Arkansas. So if it were to end today, then he would get 75% of the remainder of the deal. Obviously, that's not happening. It's just not even real hypothetical. So that makes Pitman the highest paid coach in Arkansas history, beating Brett Bielema, who was at $4.2 million when he was at Arkansas, and just edging out Eric Musselman, who's at $4 million, which is a lot for a basketball coach, and deserved. No question about that. This is a contract that's also going to be, there's renewal bonuses, there's bonuses for winning 7 games. Like all these bonuses actually went up. I think $250,000 if you win at least 7. Last contract it was just 6. So shows you the standards have gone up a little bit. There's bonuses for college football playoffs, certain bowl tiers of bowl games, all that stuff, graduating your students, all those things you would expect also. But this contract is going to be redone in 2 years. just the nature of the business. It's how it works. It'll be redone most likely in 2 years. It's also got a non-compete. He can't go to any other SEC teams. I hear a lot of people say, well, what about other conferences? Well, first of all, who's leaving the coaching job in the SEC? I mean, there's not many jobs out there across the country where, you would leave. I guess Lincoln Riley technically and untechnically left Oklahoma before they joined the SEC to go to USC. But there's not many jobs out there. USC might be one of them, that you would leave. Pitman's not going to the Pac-12. You're not going to see Sam Pitman from Oklahoma, Grove, Oklahoma, go out to the Pac-12. He's not going to, the Midwest. He's not going to Big Ten country. He can't go to any other SEC schools. He's not going to the new Big 12. He's not leaving Arkansas for one of the schools in the new Big 12. What does that leave? Clemson? Florida State? I mean, maybe Florida State. So, just gives you an idea. I mean, it's pretty much a non-compete across the conference because he's not leaving Arkansas anyway. He doesn't want to leave Arkansas. You'd probably be fine not even have that language in there, but makes you sleep a little bit better at night. Okay. Dorian Gerald has removed his name from the transfer portal and is returning to Arkansas, according to his Twitter. Now, we're going to talk to Sam Pitman Tuesday at 2 o'clock, most likely set up to, talk about his new contract and things like that. But this is also a thing that we'll bring up with him because Dorian Gerald is a class of 2016 high school. 2016. This will be his 7th year. Now, why is it his 7th year? First of all, you get the COVID year, so that was wiped out. And secondly, I mean, he's been injured so much that he easily qualifies for the medical hardship under the new rule. Medical hardship, is that what you call it? 6 year? I can't remember what you call it. Medical hardship is actually when you stay on scholarship and don't play. That's not what it is. So it's the medical red shirt, I guess is what you would call. But he should be able to qualify for that. He's got to submit a waiver and all that kind of stuff. But this was reformulated back in like 2017, I think, just to make the rules a little bit easier for guys that were injured. So I think he'll qualify for a 7th year of eligibility. It certainly helps Arkansas on the defensive line. What could that possibly change? Well, you got another defensive end now in Dorian Gerald. If you feel like he's going to stay healthy, which he hasn't, it's been different injuries every time. Maybe that allows you to maybe consider sliding a guy like Eric Gregory, who already goes 6'4", 305, from end to defensive tackle a little more. Certainly gives you maybe that option in a 4-man front. Certainly could possibly help that. So I think that gives you maybe the ability to have a couple of extra looks. And certainly we're all like praying for Dorian Gerald to make it through a season healthy. And this is a guy that was really well regarded. He was #1 strong side defensive end coming out of junior college. It's just been a tough road for him here. And I think everybody who's a Razorback fan, and even if you're not, you're probably rooting on for Dorian Gerald to just stay healthy, get it through a season. So, all right, where do we want to go next? I wrote this article, Top 10 Returning Razorbacks Who Could Break Out in 2022. I think things like this in the offseason are a lot of fun to do. I changed my mind a lot. I came out with a similar version of this way back like in January, but things have kind of changed. We've had spring football, so I wanted to update the list. I don't necessarily have this in order, but it's kind of could feel like it's in order a little bit. But Ketron Jackson, first guy I mentioned, 6'2", 209. The guy caught 5 passes for 97 yards last year. I think he could really bump those figures up significantly. Obviously, he came out of the spring as one of the starting wide receivers. He'll have to continue to battle for that spot, obviously. Jayden Johnson is the next guy I have listed. Jayden Johnson was probably the 3rd safety in the spring. When they were in a 3-2-6, he was starting. When they were in a 4-2-5, he was the first guy, I guess, with the second group, but he would be considered the 3rd safety. But he's just a true sophomore, 6'2", 216, big kid. He could also play nickel, but in the spring he didn't do any of that. Next I have Takias Crawford. I think we're going to see – I'm going to combine this actually. I have Takias Crawford, and then the next guy I have is Luke Jones. Really going to be one of those guys most likely. I think Takias Crawford is going to end up, as long as Dalton Wagner's healthy, I think Takias Crawford moves to the left side and battles Luke Jones in fall camp for the starting left tackle job. and I think Takias Crawford might beat him out. It's going to be a nice battle. But one of those two guys, 6'5", 347 versus 6'5", 327. Two big dudes over there at left tackle. Zach Williams is my next guy. Now, Zach Williams has got some guys to battle, okay? Jordan Dominic's coming in. Laden Jackson getting healthy. Dorian Gerald is coming back. So maybe that even changes a little bit because that is some stiff competition for Zach Williams. But he came out of the spring as a starter. He's contributed all 3 years that he's been at Arkansas, from his true freshman year to his junior year last year. He's got 2 more years left if he wants it this year and next with the COVID year. So, but Zach Williams, he'll probably be about 6'4", 260. Has contributed his whole career, but has never been a starter. So I kind of think that he might be a guy to watch. The next guy I have might surprise people a little bit, Malik Chavis. You know, I think Malik Chavis has got a lot of potential. He's another guy that's really increased his role year by year at Arkansas. Former Rising guy, 6'2", 200. You got Dwight McGlothern maybe at the other side. So, and people may ask, you know, you kind of have to ask, well, what position, Trey? Well, I mean, he's worked at safety. He's worked at cornerback. In the spring, he was at cornerback. Saw a lot of action with the first group. Battled Hudson Clark there. Battled Ladarius Bishop, who was injured in the spring. But I think Chavis has a shot. I thought he did some really good things in the spring. I think if he keeps coming, even if he doesn't start, I could see him maybe being a third cornerback out there. Malik Hornsby is my next guy. And I've said this before, but Malik Hornsby playing wide receiver is not a gimmick. It's not something cute and fancy. It's not getting too cute. It's a real legitimate threat that Arkansas is going to have, and people are going to have to take notice of. I could see it with the first-team defense. You know, not scared to death, but just like every time Malik Hornsby lines up at wide receiver, they are making sure they know exactly where he is. And they give him a lot. I mean, like, they're scared of getting beat deep, so they have to give him cushion. So if he runs like a hitch, he's like wide open. But he will beat some teams deep this year. Malik Hornsby is going to make some plays for Arkansas at wide receiver. And I don't mean just like some plays that don't matter. I mean like in important situations, he will make plays at wide receiver for Arkansas. And create a little confusion because this is a guy who can take an end around. He can just take a direct snap. He can motion from wide receiver to quarterback, motion KJ Jefferson out, do double passes. You could do a lot of tricky stuff with this. And it feels like he's embraced it. I was a little thinking, you know, maybe they can't do this. He did enter the transfer portal. Why would he enter the transfer portal? You know, because he's the backup quarterback and, you know, not getting a shot and all this stuff. But I think that this is a role that fits for him. And then, you know what, Malik? Next year you can compete for the starting quarterback job. Not that they're not giving him opportunities, but I think if KJ has another year, you know, or builds on last year, I think maybe we could see him move on. And then, you know, Malik Hornsby be battling for that starting spot. But I mean, we saw what the guy can do just with his legs against Penn State. I mean, he can dominate a game with his legs if he can get to where he's passing the ball. I feel like sometimes with Malik, he tries to throw the ball as hard as he possibly can. And, you know, it's not that he has a bad arm. He doesn't. It's just sometimes the choices he makes with the ball. So just get better at that. Work at quarterback, work at wide receiver. Next is Chris Paul. Pooh Paul, he first to be called. Now, he's probably going to be the third linebacker at Arkansas, but he'll rotate in pretty steadily. Remember, Bumper Pool was the third linebacker last year, had 125 tackles, all SEC. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but I really like this kid a lot. I think he's got a bright future. I've said before that I think he could be like a team spokesperson type of guy, a leader for this team. Just really liked our first interview with him that we had during the spring. Cameron Ball is next. I could see Cameron Ball maybe leapfrogging some guys. We've said that time and time again. Torian Carter, we don't know the extent of his knee injury. I hear that it could take him a while. We'll probably find out from Sam Pitman tomorrow. But I think Cam Ball, I think you see him a good bit this season. 6'5", 313, maybe the guy closest to filling that John Ridgeway type of role. Next is A.J. Green, 5'11", 202. This guy has afterburners, extremely fast. He's the only, like, aside from Rashad DeBinion, who's a true freshman, A.J. Green's the only returning, he's the only returning real shifty back. You know, you've got Rocket Sanders, who's fast. You got Dominic Johnson. Those guys primarily I think of like guys that are going to run through you, run over you, that kind of stuff. And A.J. Green, a little more shifty and just pure speed. I got a bonus guy here, Trey Knox. I feel like after 6 games when Trey Knox was moved to tight end, he kind of had his breakout there. But I think that he's going to really have a big year. He had 20 catches last season in just 6 games since moving to wide receiver, to tight end. But he's going to play at about probably close to 250. He was a career high 215 last year. That was his high career. So he put on weight to get to 215 last year and then started building on that, throughout the season as he moved to tight end. But he's hoping to play at close to 250. So that's a lot of weight in a short amount of time. But as he says, I think I can make some money at this position. So that's my top 10 returning Razorbacks who could break out. I thought this was a cool list. Speaking of top list, this was top 25 running backs across the country, and there's not a Razorback on here. The team that led Power 5 football last year in rushing, there's not a Razorback on here. I get it, sure. I think you'll probably see Rocket Sanders or Dominic Johnson on this list when there's a postseason winter edition of it. A couple of guys that I think maybe are underrated. They got 18, Muhammad Ibrahim from Minnesota. I don't know if that's how you say his name or whatever. But I remember watching him last year. I remember the injury that he had. You could see it's like slow motion. They're playing it, and then there's like this catch like in his lower leg, and you knew when that happened. It's like, ooh, man, something tore. But I thought he was a really impressive back. He ran for 163 yards and 2 scores when they almost beat Ohio State in the opener. I think that's when he also got hurt. But I think he's maybe a little bit underrated. And the kid from UCLA, Charbonnet, I'm not sure how you say his name either. He played at Michigan also. Really impressed with him also as a running back. But they've got him at 12. I like both of those guys to be higher than that. But, I think there'll be a Razorback on this list when they do a postseason, or if they're doing position power rankings throughout the season and stuff. I think you could see that. DraftKings Sportsbook came out with their list of over-under for win totals. This one just particular has the SEC. It's got Arkansas at 7.5. And our man Brad Crawford says to take the over on that, and I agree with him. He thinks it should be more like 8.5. I agree. I think he's right. I think you take the over on that. I like this team. I've said before, I think they're big. I think they didn't miss a beat in the spring. I think they're fast. I think they've got a lot of key players returning, including an offensive line for the most part, 4 guys, and then a starting quarterback. This is an interesting story. This was a couple days ago, but in OTAs, the report is that Felipe Franks, former Arkansas and Florida quarterback, has been working at tight end. He's a big dude, obviously. What was Felipe, like 6'6"? I mean, he's a big guy. He's not like a guy that has an initial burst of speed, but he's more like a 200 or a 400-meter guy, not a 100-meter guy. 200, something like that, a guy that can build speed up. But he's fast when he gets going. It's just not an initial burst. But maybe that's an interesting situation for him. I don't think it's something that'll stick. I think he sticks at quarterback. I think Felipe has some positive attributes that he can still deliver at that position. All right. The top 25 and 1 from CBS Sports is out now that everybody's declared. Of course, we know Jalen Williams is declared for the NBA draft officially, remaining in, signing with an agent, all that stuff. So they've got Gonzaga number 1, North Carolina 2, Houston 3, Kentucky 4, and the Arkansas Razorbacks at number 5. I think Arkansas went from being the favorite, in my opinion, to win the national championship with Jalen Williams to a contender, a legitimate contender for winning the national championship next year. And with that, I want to go over to Curtis because we're going to talk a little bit about some recruiting and things going on with Razorback basketball. For those of you who don't follow Curtis, you can follow him at Kurt Wilkerson _. As I've said before, he does a fantastic job covering Razorback basketball, all aspects of it from recruiting to the team. And a lot of Curtis's stuff is VIP.
Hey, Trey.
Curtis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How's it going?
It's going good. We're just kind of running through some things. I just went over the top 25 and 1 from CBS Sports, which has Arkansas at number 5. It's kind of talking season in basketball, but there's still a lot of stuff going on. And I was wondering if you could just kind of update us on some of the things going on with players trickling in with the team. I guess everybody maybe, but Black, right? I think everybody's on campus, right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. Anthony Black is with the Team USA under-18 group. They're playing in the FIBA Americas Championship in Tijuana. That actually starts today. and runs through June the 12th. You know, he was one of 27 guys, all obviously really highly regarded prospects that were invited to the training camp. Jordan Walsh was one of those guys. Nick Smith was another. He declined the invitation to come on campus. Walsh was one of the very last guys that was cut from the final roster of 12. Anthony Black made it. I think he's going to be their starting point guard. So, you know, while you have a bunch of guys, the rest of the team really trickling onto campus, if you're not going to be there, I guess playing with Team USA and going for a gold medal is a pretty cool consolation prize. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he does there, and then he'll join the team once he gets that up. But, yeah, everybody else is on campus. They moved in over Memorial Day weekend and have been, you know, going through kind of their own workouts and running some open gym type stuff. But they really get it kicked off this week. Kind of entering that 8-week summer period where you got 8 hours per week where you can put some work in, and a lot of that strength and conditioning and things of that nature. But you also get 4 hours per week of that on-court, you know, drills and instruction with the coaching staff. That's so pivotal, you know, for the summer, especially for a team with 11 newcomers. That actually starts today. So we'll start hearing a lot more about that as they gear up for what should be a really, you know, exciting and interesting season with a lot of new faces.
And speaking of things going on today, Curtis, also Laden Blocker is in town. Actually, it's 12:17 p.m. right now on Monday, June 6th, and he was scheduled to arrive around 11 o'clock this morning, right?
Yeah. Laden Blocker has arrived on campus to begin his official visit. You know, this is interesting. This is a guy who, you know, he's been on campus a lot. Obviously an in-state player. He's from Maumelle, played at Little Rock Christian before transferring to Sunrise Christian, which is really a national powerhouse, one of the best programs in the country out in Wichita, Kansas. But he took an unofficial visit literally a year ago to the day to Arkansas. He was on campus in February when the Razorbacks beat Kentucky in that crazy game inside Bud Walton Arena. And now he's back for an official visit. So that's at least 3 times now that he's been on campus. You know, a 4-star prospect, a top 35 guy nationally. But, you know, quite honestly, I think he's a guy that's going to push for 5-star status on the Nike EYBL with Brad Beal Elite 17 and under. And it's the same program that produced Moses Moody and Nick Smith Jr., and he's just been on a tear. I mean, he averaged over 18 points per game in Louisville last weekend. Had a head-to-head matchup with DJ Wagner, who's the number 1 prospect in the country, and he gave him 27 and 10. So this is a guy whose stock is on the rise. You know, Arkansas is trying to build off that momentum of the number 2 ranked class in 2022, and this would be a heck of a start. So, you know, Laden's taken visits recently to Kansas State, to Maryland. He's at Arkansas now. He's supposed to be at Kansas over the weekend. And then he's got a commitment date set for July 2nd. That's his birthday. He'll be at the MBPA Top 100 camp in Orlando. So kind of closing on decision time. It's a good time to have him on campus. And you talk about that 2023 class. As soon as he leaves on Wednesday, the very next day on Thursday, you've got Ron Holland coming in. And so, you know, it just keeps on going. This is a 5-star guy closing in on top 10 status in the country. Very interesting prospect. The 6'8" small forward can do it all. Really, you can put the ball in his hands. You can post him up. You can get out in transition. Interesting guy. He's from Duncanville. Obviously, his teammates with Anthony Black in high school, and also comes from the same program on the EYBL Drive Nation as Jordan Walsh. So there's a lot of connections there. Arkansas has been recruiting him hard for well over a year, and now you're getting him on campus for an official visit. You know, this is a guy who just visited UCLA. He's headed to Kentucky right after. He's got one set up to Texas. So when you're competing with, for the elite prospects, obviously there's going to be a lot of competition there. But I think Arkansas is in a really nice spot with both of these guys.
All right. And just for information on Blocker, the in-state kid, number 31 ranked player nationally, 6-point guard, number 1 in Arkansas, 6'2", 175. What about Bay Fall? Am I saying that right? I don't think I'm saying that right. Is it Fall or Foul or?
No, you got it. You got it.
So now he took an unofficial visit back in the Kentucky game to Arkansas. What's his status right now? I mean, for those of you who don't know, he's the number 1 ranked center prospect in the country, and Arkansas obviously has been on him very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. He's another one that's really right up there at the top of the board. was out at Denver Prep in Colorado. And, as far as I know, he's no longer enrolled there. So I don't think he's announced where he's going to play his senior season of high school yet. So that'll be interesting, something to keep an eye on. But, yeah, just an incredible athlete. And you're right, he was also there at that Kentucky game, the same game that Laden Blocker was at. Really high on Arkansas. There's a lot of connections there. And he's a guy that's indicated to me that he wants to come back and take an official visit. And I think that'll probably come a little bit later, maybe, August or even into September. I think it'd be a good idea to maybe bring him in for one of those football weekends where he can get the full experience. I know he enjoyed the Bud Walton Arena atmosphere, but yeah, as far as colleges are concerned, he's been to Seton Hall also. He's looking at taking a visit to Auburn. Texas is another school that I've heard there, Rutgers. So, when you're dealing with a guy like this, obviously he's going to have a ton of options, but really high on Arkansas. If they get him back for a second visit, I think that puts them in a good position, better than they're already in. So, Arkansas pulls 3 5-stars in 2022. You look at 23, and they've got plenty of options again, no doubt about it.
And I guess the only other notable basketball news is Blake Wetherington is the new assistant director of recruiting and scouting after coming from Iowa State in the same role last year. Curtis, I want to jump you to your starting 5 for basketball because I like your starting 5. I agree with it. Just tell everybody out there, if you had to pick right now 5 starters for this basketball team, it's hard to do because they got so many new faces. But let's hear your top 5, your starting 5.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's so hard to do with all these new guys, but really for me, it starts in the backcourt. Point guard, I go with Anthony Black. Listen, it's a 5-star McDonald's All-American. It's the number 1 ranked point guard in the country coming in. So I can't think of a better situation there to kind of lead the charge. And
I think your first 2 guys, Curtis, are going to be pretty universal for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. And Black is 6'7". He kind of fits that mold of Jalen Tate and Jimmy Witt. With that length at the point guard position. Nick Smith, right, as the other backcourt guy. And I think those 2 are interchangeable. Black has the size where he can play off the ball. Nick Smith is an offensive creator, but he can facilitate too and run the point. So I think you're in really good hands there. I went with Ricky Council IV on the wing at that small forward position. I know people can look at that and say, well, wasn't he the 6th man at Wichita State? And yeah, that's true. But, J.D. Notae was the 6th man at Arkansas in his first year. And, this is a guy he's 6'6", he's big, physical, super athletic, would just bring, I think, a really good dynamic in the backcourt. I think he's a really good player. I think he's going to be a future pro. And where it gets complicated for me is when you get into the front court. Yeah. And, I look at all these new additions that Arkansas has there in the transfer portal, but I got to go with Jordan Walsh at the 4. And, at Arkansas, the 4 is not your traditional back to the basket, bruising, power forward type. It's a perimeter-based guy who you need to be able to rebound and guard multiple positions. Insert Jordan Walsh, right? Your 3rd 5-star McDonald's All-American. He's 6'7", super athletic. His wingspan's well over 7 feet. I just think he's a great fit there in a mismatch nightmare. And then at center, man, I really don't think you could go wrong with any of these guys. I don't think there's a lot separating them. I went with Jalen Graham, the Arizona State transfer, because of experience. You're replacing a guy like Jalen Williams. It's going to be by committee. But Graham's played 80 games of college basketball at the high major level. He was an all Pac-12 performer. He's the only guy listed as a senior on the roster outside of Kamani Johnson. So, there's not going to be that this guy hasn't seen. He's versatile. He can block shots, protect the rim. He can score. So I think he'd be a good blend there. So, yeah, Black, Smith, Council, Walsh, and Graham would be my starting 5 as of now.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that leaves a guy that everybody's talking about as being a future NBA draft pick in Trevon Brazile on the bench.
yeah, exactly. And that's honestly what I had the most difficulty with. When I got to the 4 and 5, and Brazile, that's a guy I covered for a long time before I even started at HawgSports, and I agree. I think he's great. So You could slide him in there, no problem, but you're right. Regardless, it just kind of shows the depth of this team on paper when you got a guy like that and you're not even sure if he's going to start. So pretty impressive roster.
Yeah, I think those first two guys. I like yours, by the way. I think I would agree with what you have. I think when you start getting with Council and Walsh and Brazil and Graham, I mean, you almost think like 3 of the 4 some kind of way with those guys. So, all right, Curtis, anything else that you need to add before we let you go?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I'm just kind of gearing up for probably another 5-hour wild roller coaster ride with baseball here. So
yeah, no, it's going to be fun. But man, I mean, it's been enjoyable watching the game. You just wish Arkansas would have come out on top last night. That was wild. But certainly be watching that at 6:00 tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. Craziest thing I've seen in a long time.
I know. Well, hell, the game before was, how many runs were there? 49 or something? I mean,
29 to 15 or something.
They always give me a hard time because I don't know a whole lot about baseball. I mean, I enjoy watching and all that stuff, but I don't know a whole lot about it. And I was like, guys, this is a lot of points in this baseball match.
It's funny. I mean, you might appreciate this too. It's Oklahoma State and Missouri State that final score is 29 to 15. And I saw a few tweets out there that Oklahoma State and Missouri State opened up the football season last year with a 23 to 16 game. So
is that right?
Baseball than football. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep.
That's wild. All right, Curtis. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep, anytime.
All right, everybody. That's Curtis Wilkerson. Again, you can follow Curtis at @KurtWilkerson_. Does a ton of great, in-depth, well thought out stuff. Curtis has a really strong basketball background. He's a former NAIA player, former NAIA coach from McCrory, Arkansas, so he knows the Razorbacks inside and out. So it's a great follow at @KurtWilkerson_. We're going to Danny West now.
What's up, Trey?
Hey, Danny. Danny, I was just with Curtis Wilkerson. We were talking a lot about Razorback basketball and haven't introduced you fully yet. But for those of you who don't follow Danny, you can follow him at DannyWest247 on Twitter. And he is the HawgSports recruiting analyst, been at this for a dozen years or more, and does a great job for us. So if you want to read Danny's stuff, it is primarily VIP, so you do need that subscription. And again, just $1 right now for your first month. So, Danny, we've been talking a lot about basketball. Obviously, there's a lot of baseball going on. I know you'll be watching the game tonight at 6 o'clock, ESPN2, for those of you who don't know. But obviously bringing you in to talk a little bit about football, and I wanted to talk first about Taylor Lewis, the 2022 JUCO edition. So he's in this class. He would have, I guess, graduated, had junior college graduation on June 4th. So I guess should be getting to campus pretty soon, right?
Yeah, he was supposed to be in today, this evening, I should say, but he had some flight issues, so he's going to be delayed a little bit. He's coming in tomorrow afternoon, so that's still fine. He'll get here and get settled. But talked to him this morning, and that's the update. He's should be on his way pretty shortly. He's pretty pumped up about it. That's a pretty good get for him, Trey. We've talked about it for a little while now. They based on what was left in the transfer portal, I've said this a few times now, but I just feel like this one made sense at the end of it. I'm not sure there wasn't an All-American, All-SEC type to be had by Arkansas, in my opinion. So you try to move down the list a little bit. No disrespect to Taylor. He's obviously a really good player, or he wouldn't have had all those offers. But 6'3", 295. They want him to play early. They think he can. I don't know if that means starter or a definite rotation guy, but I think he fills a spot. Again, another veteran guy, grown man, been around the block type. That seems to be the trend when they bring in a defensive lineman, and he fits the bill there. 6'3", 295. I like that he's from Chicago, to be honest with you. You always see a little more toughness in Chicago guys. So
you gotta be.
Obviously, you gotta be. Gotta be. So he went out to College of the Canyons, had a pretty good run there, and kind of blew up. You get into this time of year, everybody's starting to look for D tackles. They were just really tough to come by to begin with, and very few were left, and he was one of the best ones left. So they got it.
I thought you had an interesting article breaking it down. I think we talked about it, just like why it's so hard to recruit defensive tackles. And like the first one is like 8% of men are 6'3" or taller in the first place, and not to mention 300 plus pounds. Who else was after Lewis? Who were his primary suitors? I know he'd taken a visit to Washington State. I think Auburn was in there. Who all was? Maybe Nebraska
Oregon
too.
State.
Okay.
Oregon State, Missouri made a run at him, but Auburn, to me, was really the biggest threat, and I think it was smart of Arkansas to go ahead and lock him up while he was here. Now, he didn't announce it, obviously, while he was on campus, but you get the point. Auburn really, from my understanding anyway, I can't speak for them, but based on what I was told, they were really hoping he would get down there after his Arkansas trip. So, that seems to be another trend, too. You talk about some of this competition. I've noticed Auburn a few times. Now, obviously, I can't accuse them of anything, but it certainly seems like they were on the D-line market every time Arkansas found one, too.
Danny West joining us again at Danny West 247 on Twitter, HawgSports recruiting analyst. Danny, I want to take you to this month of June. This is the title of our show today, just looking ahead to what's coming up in the month of June. And a recent study you had noted, I guess probably your study, that the months of June and July are by far Arkansas's most productive months in terms of commitments. So I guess we should be expecting a lot of activity this month. But you've kind of broken down things on dates. Just give us a little taste, I guess. This is a VIP article, but just give us a little bit of taste of what we can expect in these next couple of weeks in terms of maybe a couple of visitors, and obviously it's camp season now too. Yeah,
it's starting to heat up. I'll go back to the stat you used there first. I did a study last month, and I found that 19 of 37 commitments in the class of 2021 and 2022 came in the months of June and July. So let me repeat that again. Over half, 51%, 51-point-something%, of all commitments in the last two signing classes came in June and July. So, that tells you right there, they put a premium on those 2 months. Obviously, a lot of official visits coming up. It really starts Wednesday this week. You've got a defensive tackle coming in, Ayo Tafasi, coming out from Towson, Maryland, another place you don't see Arkansas associated with a lot, but kind of a unique situation with this guy. Now, I'm not sure. I can't seem to wrap my head around their current numbers. It seems like every time I say they're done, they add one more. But, this is an interesting case because Ayo actually reclassified from the 22 class into the 23 class. So a 6'4", 300-pound defensive lineman. And my understanding is he could still sign with somebody and enroll as a 22 edition. So not sure which one Arkansas wants him for, but this week alone, I think he started his official at Virginia Tech today. This kid's blown up out of nowhere. Again, we go back to there's only so few that are to be had by all teams, and they all want these big athletic dudes. And so there's kind of a race towards the end. You get into the summer months, anybody who's left, everybody's after him. So he started his official today at Virginia Tech. Then he's here on Wednesday. He'll stay through Friday, and then he goes immediately to Florida State. So a lot of competition here when suddenly, think about this kid last fall. He had very few offers. Coastal Carolina, Central Michigan was up there for him. And now you're talking about Arkansas, Florida State, Virginia Tech. He's come out of nowhere. So a really interesting prospect there. He'll be here on Wednesday to start an official visit. I would assume that's the first one of the month. And then also on Wednesday, you got a four-star quarterback, Mabry Medower, out of the Woodlands, Texas. Now, he's a 2024 composite four-star, 6'5", 215, big-time prospect there. And I know Mabry's been looking forward to getting up here for a while. Several big-time offers, Baylor, Florida, LSU, Miami, TCU. And the like. So he'll be an unofficial, obviously as a 2024. But, I guess Ayo Tafasi is the first one on the list. And then I want to say 6 or 7 more coming in this weekend. So it should be pretty busy. I can run through these if you'd like, the Friday officials, Trey.
Well, yeah, if you want to go through the Friday, and then let's quickly just talk about a couple of the camps coming up also.
All right, got you. Yeah, Madden Sanker is a 4-star offensive lineman. He'll be here Friday. I've still got Chance Rucker. Steve Wilfong reported he's coming in Friday, so it could be up in the air a little bit based on what I'm hearing. But he's a 4-star corner out of Denton, Texas, Ryan High School, big-time program. You've got Dallas Young, who's already committed, a cornerback out of Gardendale, Alabama. Aiden Green, he's a wide receiver out of Powell, Tennessee. A little bit interesting story there. He actually committed to Cincinnati on an official visit this past weekend. I hit him up just before I came on with you, and I asked him, hey, you still coming in this week for your Arkansas visit? And he told me he hasn't yet talked to Coach Guyton about it. So obviously Kenny Guyton, the wide receivers coach. So keep an eye on that. He may still be here, it sounded like, but we'll see later in the week. Connor Stroh, offensive lineman out of Frisco, Texas. TJ Metcalf, this is a kid I really like, Trey. I want you to watch his film. But he's out of Pinson, Alabama. A very heavily recruited, highly rated 3-star, 6'1", 180. And then Brad Spence, another film I really, really enjoyed. He's an edge player. I think he calls himself an edge. I see him as more of an inside linebacker, to be honest with you. I think that's where I'd probably give him a shot at eventually. But he's out of Houston, Texas, Klein Forest High School, 6'2", 225.
Gotcha. All right, Danny. Well, I appreciate you. And for anybody who wants to read any more of Danny's stuff, he's got the Big Red Board for 2023 for defense, and then the 2024 Big Red Board for offense. And for those of you who don't know, that's where we take, or Danny takes all the guys that are really reciprocating interest, that Arkansas is really showing interest in. It's a look, kind of a big picture look at guys that are genuinely interested in Arkansas, and kind of ranks their interest, hot, cold, warm, all that kind of stuff, lists any updates, any new information on those guys too. So it's a really good read. Again, VIP. All right, Danny, appreciate you joining us, man, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, bud. See
ya. All right, everybody. Danny West. Again, follow Danny at DannyWest247 on Twitter, and does a great job. Again, most of his stuff is VIP. Before we get to your questions here, I want to remind you one more time, there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Always tune in on Facebook Live. Be sure to throw us a like there. Follow the page if you haven't done so already. Also available on YouTube. Throw us a thumbs up on YouTube, and share the content with somebody else if you think might like them. Also, subscribe to YouTube and hit the notification bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. If you have not left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, please take a minute and do so. Let other people know what they can expect, why you like this show. Is it your go-to Razorbacks show? Where does it rank for you? What do you like about the show? Any of those things definitely helps boost our channel on the algorithm on Apple Podcasts. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you think I would find a favorite podcast. And, of course, as I mentioned, HawgSports is just $1 right now for your first month. All right, a couple questions here before we get out of here. Randall File says, how will the scholarship work with Dorian Gerald coming back? It'll work out. I'm not sure how it will. I've got him at 86 scholarships now with Dorian Gerald coming back. I'm going to ask Sam Pitman tomorrow, hopefully, if I get a chance. It's just a Zoom call. So hopefully I'll get enough questions in to where I can ask everything I want, but I want to know, how the scholarship numbers are going to look right now, because I do have them at 86 as of now with him coming back. A lot of talk about baseball here. Got to get more productive play. Worried about pitching. I mean, Oklahoma State should be worried about pitching too. It could be a really crazy game tonight because everybody's wondering about the pitching. Ethan Malone says, does Hornsby take significant snaps at wide receiver this year? I absolutely think he's going to. I think we could see, it wouldn't surprise me to see 17 or 20 catches from him. It really wouldn't. And what I saw in the spring, again, he was burning people deep, and I'm talking 55, 75-yard passes, just burning them, starting defense. And then I would also see him run a hitch, and there would be nobody around him. Why? Because they're worried about getting smoked deep. I absolutely think he could be a real weapon for him. Stacey Matheny says, both been fans our lives. We've seen the best and worst of our Hogs encountering according to the way. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking for questions. Ready for some Hog football? Go Hogs. It won't be that long. August will get here pretty soon. Trey, what's your prediction for the score tonight? How about 25-24 Arkansas. I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. It wouldn't surprise me to see it go extra innings or anything like that. I mean, it's just been absolutely wild. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm not a big baseball guy. I mean, I love, watching the Hogs and everything, but I'm not like a guy that, you can see when I say stuff on here, I'm sure people are just like, oh my gosh, Trey, that's not the right terminology and stuff. But I enjoy it. My wife is even less than me, but she sat out there on the patio watching the game. And it was a long one last game. I mean, it was like almost 5 hours, it seemed like. All right, everybody. Well, I really appreciate everybody joining in, watching the show. I hope you check out all the stuff at HawgSports.com. I don't know if you guys have noticed, we got a new homepage and got some things structured a little bit better. It's been totally revised. It's also available in dark mode for our subscribers, just like our message board, which I think is a really cool feature to have. So go check out HawgSports if you haven't done so already. Again, HawgSports.com for all your latest Razorback news. And thanks to Danny West for joining us. Thanks for Curtis Wilkerson. Haven't had both those guys on the show, so feel pretty good about the show today. All right, everybody. Thank you for all of you joining us. Thank you for your questions as well, and go to HawgSports.com for all your latest Razorback news. Again, this has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.